Welcome to EPG Pathshala in the subject of information technology and in the paper of open source software. In this module, we will see how do we install Linux and we will see some basic terms that are related to the structure of Linux operating system. Friends, in the earlier module, we have already seen what is Linux, and I hope I have motivated you enough to use Linux as an operating system. It is a free operating system and it is open source as well. So, in this module, we will review how do we install Linux operating system. We will see some basic structure, the components that are required to install Linux operating system, and we will see how to what are the different ways and means to install, and how do we use virtual machines so that we can install Linux without disturbing the existing operating system of our computer or maybe laptop. So, let us begin with this module. As you can see, first thing is we have to finalize a Linux distribution. There are various Linux distributions available. There can be server based operating system, there can be desktop based operating system. Operating systems are also available for handheld devices, mobiles, they are available for embedded systems as well. Now, the basic difference between server based and desktop based system is the systems that install on server, they are providing services. So, usually it is a multi-user multitasking system. No doubt Linux kernel is same, but when we install a server based system, it means we are enabling the system to support multiple number of users. Other way around, if I am installing a desktop based system, probably there will be a single user at a time. So, the hardware requirement may also change. Usually servers, they have a 64-bit processor, for instance Intel Xeon servers, and the desktop systems, they come with 32-bit processor, or the modern systems, they do come with 64-bit processors. But the main difference is a desktop system will be shut down daily, whereas servers are intended to run on daily basis. They never shut down, probably once in a month or once in a year a server may shut down. And there is third category of device, we call them tablets, handheld devices, phones. Now, these devices are quite different from our server or maybe desktop based systems, because these devices, they require battery, whereas the server or desktop, they run on power supply. So, the Linux operating system, we must take care, depending on a particular device, we can select a particular operating system or a particular distribution. Let us move ahead. So, few questions that need to be answered before installing or before finalizing a Linux distribution is, what kind of hardware do we have? So, whether it is a x86 system or a 64-bit system, ARM processor and so on. The other question is whether it is a server based system or it is a desktop, that is it is a personal computer or it is a server. Then the third question is what kind of packages we will be using. So, if it is a desktop based, probably we will install development environment, programming related packages. If it is a server, we may install web server, file server, etc. So, depending on the kind of usage, we select particular packages. The another question that comes in our mind is how much hard disk space do we have? What kind of hardware are there in our system? So, accordingly we can select a distribution. For instance, there are Linux distros like DSL which run on very less amount of hard disk, whereas server systems like CentOS, Red Hat Linux, they require at least 10 GB of hard disk space. The other question that we need to address is what is the support cycle. Now, the Linux distributions, some of them they come with LTS, that is long time support, where once we install, the support is available for maybe 2-3 years, while other distributions they come with support cycle of maybe 6 months. So, if I am installing a server based distribution, I will go for long time support, and if I am installing a desktop based distribution, probably I may think of a short time support cycle. The other question is how often packages are updated. Again, this is also related to support cycle. Suppose if I am a programmer, probably I may require packages to be updated on daily or maybe weekly basis. So, I will select a distribution which gets updated periodically. The other question is whether it is for experimental use or it is a stable system. So, friends, if we are students, we may experiment with Linux distribution. I have already discussed in the previous module, there are distributions like Mint which can be helpful in experimenting purpose. If there is a student who is in school, he may experiment with Ubuntu system and so on. And finally, whether the customization of kernel is required or not, because depending on different hardware, we may require to customize our kernel or we may recompile the kernel. So, these are certain questions which we need to address before selecting a Linux distribution. These are few widely available distributions. Trisquel is a free software. It complies to the Free Software Foundation definition. So, those who do not want their Linux to communicate with other third party tools, they may install Trisquel Linux. Ubuntu is again freely downloadable. Usually student community they use Ubuntu. It can be used for desktop. There is again another distribution that is for server as well. CentOS is Community Enterprise OS, which is a derived distribution from Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and generally the system administrators they prefer CentOS distribution. And if you are looking for a Indian distribution which supports Indian languages, there is Boss Linux, which supports lot of Indian languages as well as our Indian packages. So, apart from these, there are various other distributions. You may visit the website distrowatch.com. There are at least 1000 plus distributions that can be selected and installed. Now, let us look at the methods of installation. In fact, there are various ways, but there are 4 prominent techniques to install Linux on your system. Either we can install on hard disk or we can run from media. The first type of installation is bare metal installation, which is usually used for servers. As you know, servers are dedicated systems. We may not wish to run multiple operating system on a single server. So, that is bare metal installation, where before installation there is no data or maybe there is no software on the hard disk. A brand new system, when it comes, we install Linux on that system. So, we call it bare metal system. The other installation is dual boot. The third installation is using live media, maybe CD, DVD, pen drive, USB storage. So, we can install Linux such that it can be plugged and played from either USB or CD or DVD. Again, there are various Linux which comes on CD or DVD, and it requires minimal amount of setup. And finally, if you want to experiment with a system, the last option is we can use hypervisor program, or that is virtualization. So, suppose our computer it already has existing operating system. It may be most of the cases when we purchase a system, it comes with Windows operating system, and most of the time it is again a licensed operating system which we do not want to disturb. Being licensed system, we do not wish that we remove Windows and then we install Linux. So, with the help of virtualization, we can keep the Windows system as it is, over which we can install Linux for our experimental purpose. So, there are different ways of installation. We will see how to use virtualization in the future slides. Let us move ahead one by one. In bare metal, as I said, no software is required. The hard disk is completely blank, it is bare metal, and we try to install Linux using the live ISO image. So, we require some bootable media. When we put on the computer, we set the BIOS accordingly, so that as soon as the computer starts, it will start booting from the CD. and that is how we can install Linux from either CD or DVD or maybe a bootable pen drive into our existing server or the hardware. There are few things we must consider. Suppose if there is some data on hard disk, you must be careful to take backup, otherwise there are chances of losing those data or maybe software. Usually bare metal is selected for dedicated systems. If we select bare metal, we get optimum performance, because there is no other operating system which is sharing the CPU or which is sharing the hardware resources. The other way of installing Linux is using a dual boot system. So, in dual boot, usually the hard disk is partitioned. There can be 2 or more operating system. If there are multiple partition, we can use multiple operating system, but generally we keep 2 operating system, that is why the name is dual boot. So, on one partition there will be operating system 1, another partition there will be operating system 2. As and when required, we can boot either of the operating system. Both the operating system cannot run together, but before the system starts, we can specify whether I want to start OS 1 or maybe operating system 2. So, with the help of dual booting, we can use Windows and Linux at the same time, that can be installed at on the same hard disk, but either of the systems can run at a time. Again, dual booting installation requires a little bit of technical knowledge. Careful installation is required. There is chance of missing your existing data, or you may miss existing software that already is there on the system. Suppose if we have Windows which is already installed and we try to install Linux on a separate partition, probably it will work. So, when the next time you boot your system will ask whether you want to start Windows or whether you want to start Linux. If we go in a reversed way, suppose if Linux is there and you try to install Windows, there are chances of losing your Linux data. So, those who are technically skilled, they may prefer a dual booting system. Again, dual booting, when we use dual booting, we get better performance compared to live media or virtualization. So, the first technique is bare metal, usually that is prepared for preferred for standalone systems. Another technique is dual boot. The third technique is using live media, maybe CD or DVD. So, let us see how we use live media and we can install or we can run Linux from that media. Generally, the CD or DVD, they come with bootable Linux, or we can also prepare our pen drive such that it becomes bootable. So, our Linux can be booted from CD or it may be DVD or from pen drive. When we are using a tertiary storage device like CD, DVD, USB, there is no risk of losing data that is on our hard disk. The drawbacks are performance becomes slow, because the CD or DVD, they are slow media compared to hard disk. So, if we install Linux on hard disk, we get better performance, but if we are installing on these media, that is the tertiary storage, our performance will degrade. Again, if we are using a CD or DVD and if you want to save data on hard disk, it becomes a bit trickier. You need some expert knowledge how to save data on hard disk while your Linux is running from any reusable media. And the final option is we can use hypervisor program. Now, hypervisor is a piece of software that runs on operating system. The technology is also known as virtualization. Virtualization can be on servers or it can be on desktop systems. A widely known software, VirtualBox, is a good hypervisor which can be used for virtualization. While doing virtualization, we ensure that the existing operating system remains intact. So, this option, while you are using virtualization, there is no risk of losing any data of existing operating system. Whatever Linux we install will be in a sandbox model. So, there are very less threats of transferring data from one system to another. There are very less chances of viruses propagating to and fro from virtual system to the main operating system. Let us see how virtualization works. In this diagram, there are two types of virtualization that has been shown. The first one is OS level virtualization. So, here this is our hardware, the bare metal what we call, over which we install host operating system and over which we run guest processes. But with the use of hypervisor, what we are doing is we can install different operating system on the same machine. So, when we say hardware level virtualization, we use host operating system, there will be a hypervisor over which we can run multiple guest operating system. So, in this diagram you can see there can be one operating system which is host, and there are guest operating systems, guest 1, guest 2. So, we can run multiple operating systems if we prefer hardware virtualization. Now, let us see how to install Linux with the help of hypervisor. As I said, the advantages of using hypervisor are there are less risk of losing data, it is very easy to manage, it is easy to distribute, and we can support network based activities with the help of hypervisor. I will give one example under what circumstances hypervisor will be helpful to the college students. For instance, if I am a teacher, I want to give my own setup environment to the students. For instance, if I am using C++, I am using Java, I am using a package known as R. So, what I will do is I will configure my own Linux within the hypervisor. My Linux will be maybe of 8 GB or 10 GB of size. I will install all the required software in my system and I can easily distribute to the students. It will require just half an hour for the students to completely set up the Linux. The environment will be same, whatever I am using, the same environment will be used by the students. So, nowadays it is becoming a trend that most of the software they come with the virtual image. You can browse the internet, you can download that virtual image. There is no need of installing software, because software installation in Linux is bit trickier. So, the easiest way is you install hypervisor and simply you download the virtual machine and install over the hypervisor. All the required software, the configurations, they will start executing on your hypervisor. No expert knowledge is required to configure your entire system. Let us take one more example. Suppose if I have set up my own environment in which I have 100 different programs. Now, distributing each program to students, again configuring the environment for those will be bit trickier. So, what I can do is I can prepare my own virtual image, I can easily distribute with the help of pen drive or some media. The student will install in their hypervisor and all the assignment data, the programs, data sets, all of them it can be easily shipped with the help of hypervisor. So, this is the easiest way. No doubt there are some drawbacks, like the system requires good hardware configuration, otherwise performance will be degraded. You require at least 2 or 3 GB of RAM in your system, so that you can run multiple Linux or Windows and Linux together. Let us see how the steps are taken to install the virtual systems. So, the first thing is we must choose hypervisor. As I said, VirtualBox is a very reputed hypervisor. VirtualBox is a product of Oracle. It can be downloaded. It is nearly 125 MB size. You can download the VirtualBox from this website and you can install in Windows, or we can also install in Linux system. There is another hypervisor provided by VMware. Now, VMware usually provides proprietary software. It is a paid distribution, but in corporate they prefer using VMware instead of VirtualBox. As a student, you may try installing VirtualBox, as it is free and being open source, we can play with the VirtualBox very easily. So, in this example, I will demonstrate the use of VirtualBox. With the help of VirtualBox, how we can set up the Linux environment. So, this is the first screen of VirtualBox. As you can see, the base operating system is Windows. So, Windows was the default operating system which came with the hardware, over which VirtualBox is installed. As I said, VirtualBox is a software nearly 125 MB, you can download and install it. So, this VirtualBox instance is running over Windows. Here you can see there are some configuration menus, there is something like new over here. So, next what we do is, by clicking on new, the dialog box appears which will ask what kind of operating system you want to use. So, Windows will be running. Apart from Windows, if we want to install Linux, we can type over here that I will be using Linux. You can specify the type of distribution, it can be 32-bit, 64-bit and so on, and then we click next. So, the other configuration is about memory. The total memory is shown over here, total system memory is shown. Out of this total memory, how much memory we want to assign to this virtual system. So, you can drag this, you can select maybe 40% for your virtual system and 60% for your Windows. Now, if there is less memory in your hardware, probably it will be difficult to assign 1 GB or more to the virtual system. So, this is the another step where we select the memory size. In the next step, we select what kind of hard disk we will be creating. Usually, when we install virtual machine, it becomes a file on our Windows hard disk. So, if I am saying I want to create 8 GB virtual image, so the entire 8 GB of Linux will stay as a file in my Windows. It will be a single file within which the entire operating system will be stored. Naturally, my file system must support such huge files. It can be 8 GB, 10 GB. You can select the amount of data you want to store in your hard disk. But this hard disk is different from the original hard disk that ships with the hardware. This will be a virtual hard disk. So, the size of file will stay as virtual disk image. So, after clicking this option, next what we do is we select the type of file. You can go with the default. There are different types available which requires bit of knowledge for virtual systems. Whatever is the default, you may go ahead with the default selection. Next screen, it will ask for amount of storage and the type of hard disk. So, dynamically allocated files can become larger or it may shrink, whereas fixed size partitions will remain fixed size throughout your environment. So, again we go with the default option, dynamically allocated. So, as and when the amount of data grows, our virtual disk image can grow or it may shrink accordingly. On selecting next, you get the another screen. So, over here you can see an entry has appeared for this Linux. There is an entry and these are the configurations. So, what is our display type, how much storage we have selected, what is the kind of system, audio, network, USB, etc. Over here I have created a blank template for Trisquel Linux. As of now, Linux is not installed, I have just created a template. Now, after doing this, when we say start, you get another screen. See, by clicking over start button, which is over here, this Linux will start and you get a screen where it asks for source. So, if my Trisquel Linux is on hard disk, I can select the folder, the entire path from here. I can locate the ISO image for this particular Linux. So, that is the requirement. You need to download the Linux ISO image before starting this installation. The ISO image can be from 500 MB or it may go up to 7 to 8 GB if it is CentOS or Red Hat. Now, after clicking this start, the system will start booting and your Linux installation process will begin. So, this is the last step of initiating a virtual machine. Once you say start, when you provide the ISO image path, the Linux booting, that is the booting of Trisquel, will start, and further you will get steps to install the entire Linux system. As you know, there are different distributions available. Each distribution has its own configuration. Few standard configurations like type of keyboard, regional settings, date and time settings will occur in almost all distributions. So, there are different steps of installation which may vary from distribution to distribution. In most of the cases, during installation it will ask to configure the username password, the root username password, and you can create more users while the installation is continuing. So, this is how virtual machine can be configured. We can use programs like hypervisor. As I said, VirtualBox is a hypervisor. You can use such kind of programs and we can install Linux on our VirtualBox. Now, let us move ahead. You can see this is a sample screenshot where there are multiple Linux operating system installed. So, apart from Windows, I have a choice of running either of these operating system or I can run them together. If my hardware is quite good, if I have nearly 16 GB or more amount of RAM, I can run all these operating systems together and I can create a network of these. So, this can be operating system 1, operating system 2, operating system 3, and I can interconnect these operating systems with the help of VirtualBox. I can create my own network on a single system. My network will be of these 3 systems, these 3 software, that is operating system plus the Windows on which the virtual machine is running. So, on a single system, this is how we create network of servers with the help of hypervisor, and the virtualization is basic building block of cloud computing. Most of the cloud servers, they have such kind of virtual implementation through which with the help of good hardware we can do orchestration of different operating systems on a single system. We can dynamically give more RAM, we can reduce RAM, we can give more hard disk space, and we can do lot of such kind of configurations. That is why I would recommend you to configure VirtualBox, install Linux in your VirtualBox and see how the Linux system is working. You may go through the reading notes in which I have specified different steps of installation. You can go through the screenshots. Depending on the latest release of VirtualBox and Linux system, the steps may change, but more or less the procedure remains same. So, now let us move ahead. Let us study about Linux structure and boot process. So, while installing Linux, we must know something about the booting of system and the structure of Linux. Few terms which we need to consider. First is partition. If there is a hard disk, we logically divide hard disk into partitions. So, though there is a single hard disk, there can be multiple partitions, which is logical. There is file system. File system is a data structure which stores our files so that we can locate the files, we can index those files easily, and those files will be stored on our hard disk. In your hardware, there is something like BIOS, that is basic input output system. Generally, it is in ROM. So, as soon as you boot your system, the BIOS will start. BIOS has basic configurations. The date and time settings are stored in the BIOS, and there is a term post that is used. Post means power on self test. So, whenever we switch on our system, some kind of diagnostic checking is done, whether the drivers devices are working or not, whether the memory is okay or not. Such kind of diagnostic checking is done, and that is known as post routine. So, when we boot our system, BIOS will be activated and the post routine will begin. Then depending on the partition, a particular file system will be loaded. So, this is how these terms are related to the booting and installation of operating system. This is a sample screen of hard disk partitions. You can see a single hard disk can be partitioned. Here there are 3 primary partitions. The fourth one is extended partition, and this extended partition is again partitioned into logical partitions. So, we can install Windows on primary partition. There can be a swap partition which is used for virtual memory, and we can install Linux on our extended partition. The Linux file systems directories can go again in the different partitions within this extended partition. So, some knowledge of partitioning is required when we are installing Linux with the help of dual booting system. Now, in Windows, the partitions are given by drive names like C drive, D drive, etc., whereas in Linux the partitioning is given by the slash sign. Slash means it is root partition. As we have C drive, similarly in Linux there is a slash partition which indicates the root. Again, the file systems change. In Windows there is FAT32 or NTFS file system, whereas Linux uses some other kind of file system. So, under certain circumstances your Linux data may not be available to Windows. In most of the cases the Windows data is always readable by Linux, and in Windows we have C drive, D drive, E drive and so on, whereas in Linux we have slash home, slash boot, such kind of mount points. These points can be different partitions also, or it can be a directory structure on the same partition. Now, let us see how the booting is done. As soon as we switch on our computer, the system starts. So, BIOS becomes active. From the BIOS, there are certain settings like date and time which are read. Post routine begins. Post means power on self test. Then the system will locate master boot record MBR. This is the first stage of booting. If it is a dual boot system, MBR will ask whether you want to boot system number 1, system number 2. According to the choice, another boot loader is loaded. It can be Lilo, GRUB, Grub, ISO Linux and so on. So, these boot loaders, they are responsible of loading operating system. There are 2 stages. The first stage will help you to select what kind of operating system you want to start. If it is a dual booting, it will give you a screen with 2 boot options, and depending on the selection, particular bootloader will be selected, and these bootloaders at the stage 2, they are responsible of loading Linux kernel in your RAM. So, in the third stage, the Linux kernel will be loaded in your RAM. There is again another file system to load Linux kernel, and finally, the user programs will begin. So, programs like init will begin, and it will start forking few other processes. So, this is how traditional Linux systems used to boot. Let us quickly go through this. First is BIOS is initialized, post routine begins, that is power on self test. It will check for our devices whether they are working or not. It will scan memory. Then the master boot record is invoked, MBR. We give a choice whether you want to boot Windows or Linux. So, depending on the choice, another boot record will be loaded, which will successively load Linux kernel, and the RAM file system will be loaded. Init RAM FS is a file system that is used to load kernel. Now, what is this init RAM disk? It contains programs and binary files. and most of the actions performed by init RAM disk is it mounts the root file system, it begins the kernel functionality, it is also responsible of locating devices and their drivers. So, that when the kernel is booting, when the Linux system is starting, it will start locating the devices, and in case if there is error, the init RAM FS will check for errors and it will do logging appropriately. So, init RAM FS is a kind of file system which is used when the kernel is loaded. Usually the kernel is in compressed form, it is in hard disk. So, the bootloader will locate the kernel, it will load in the file system, the kernel will uncompress itself and then the kernel will start executing. So, after uncompression, the kernel will start the init process and successively other processes will begin. It can be a terminal login process, it can be a GUI process and so on. So, earlier BIOS will start, then there is post routine, there is master boot record, usually it is the first sector of the hard disk. Master boot record will load other boot loaders, which will load the kernel in RAM, kernel will unzip itself and then the kernel will start running, and finally, the user programs will initiate. Init program is the main process which starts other programs. We will study more about init in the successive modules. Let us move ahead. Now, when the Linux booting starts, as I said, init program executes the kernel and init starts other processes, so that the system starts running. There are various run levels. According to the type of Linux, it can be a single mode or multi mode system. So, there can be different run levels, any one run level is selected and the Linux will finally prompt with a text mode login or it may prompt with a GUI kind of login. What we have discussed so far is about installing Linux, and once the Linux system is installed, how it is booted. Recently, there is a minor change in the booting process. Earlier, there used to be MBR, then there was system 5 init process and the booting was done sequentially. So, earlier days, before maybe 10 years, the servers they used to start and each process started sequentially, because the servers were intended to run 24/7. But nowadays, as Linux is becoming popular, it is being deployed over tablets, mobile phones and so on. So, we require very fast booting. So, nowadays there are two major things that have replaced the traditional booting system. First is the BIOS is replaced, there is EFI BIOS. It works bit differently from the traditional BIOS, and instead of the sequential booting process, now the booting is done in parallel. So, it is very fast. As soon as you switch on the system, multiple processes they will begin and the system is started. This kind of booting, it is known as system D. So, most of the recent Linux they ship with the system D kind of booting process, where the booting is very fast. The reason is, for different handheld devices we need a very fast booting system and we generally shut down the systems on daily basis. So, you may go through the extra reading notes. I have given few topics related to these new developments that have come in the Linux market. So, let us summarize. In this module, we have studied different terms and parameters that can be used to finalize the Linux distribution. We have seen different installation methods to install Linux. We have studied what is partitioning, how we can use hypervisor without partitioning our system, and we have also seen how to install Linux with the help of hypervisor and, for instance, VirtualBox, and we can run Linux along with the existing operating system without taking any risk. So, friends, I hope you have understood the Linux operating system and its installation. Now, it is your turn to download Linux or try to acquire through certain magazines or maybe with the books. You can start experimenting with Linux. As I said, the installation with the help of VirtualBox or hypervisor is quite safe. You won't destroy your system, it will be intact. Please do experiment with different versions, with different distributions of Linux and have fun. Thank you.